I just watched the very good video from Kim and Mikey. They are talking to an ex-elder, and it's about the New Zealand commissions and the cases against the abuse cases against Watchtower, and also brings up other religions in it. But I wanted to like share this because the things that they talk about are like spot on. And
JWs for Justice, and who has been covering the New Zealand Commission and the investigation and stuff.
The guy Shane, as they mentioned, they have a group. I should probably restart that because I don't think my desktop audio is on. But they have a group for JW abuse survivors on Facebook.
Hello, everybody. We are here talking with Shane, who runs the Facebook group JWs for Justice, and who has been covering the New Zealand Commission and the investigation and stuff. Did I get all that right?
Well, it is a Facebook page, not a group, where we just put things up.
Okay.
And there's a couple of people who look after it. It's not just myself.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me, Shane. I really appreciate it.
No problems at all.
Oops.
I was going to let you just explain. I know all of us in other countries don't quite understand everything that's been going on in New Zealand. Most of us know that there was just an investigation and the commission, which, I believe all that is done. And now the commission has come forward, and you sent me a picture, and we'll put the picture up of the report that was given to the government.
Yep, they sure did. That came out. Actually, the report got handed over a day before. So it was planned to be on the 26th, and the government, in their wisdom, decided the commission decided that they would hand it over on the 25th, which sort of backfired on it wasn't really a protest, but they had something planned for the 26th. And
yeah,
while one of the MPs from the parliament came forward, there was only 20 odd, maybe even less than that, who went that supposedly the day of the passing over to the government, which didn't sort of go to plan for them. But it still got handed over. So the picture I sent you has all the reports in it. And when I've shared that picture with everybody, I've said, guess which one is the Jehovah's Witness case study?
the largest one?
No.
No?
It's one at the very end, and it's a pile of paper. It has not been at the time printed.
Interesting.
So, the whole thing has been a little bit up and down. People, including myself, there's sometimes I've made mistakes. Even just recently, I didn't quite get it. I got it clarified. The Royal Commission, while it has investigated, was not going to investigate any of the faith-based institutions. And back in around 2017, 2018, they did announce that they were going to be investigating, and there was a little bit of backlash, if it's the right word, where they said they would do the state with a little bit of lobbying from a number of different areas, including EXJWs from around the world. I wasn't involved at that time. I came into it after it was announced that faith-based was going to be included. So while I was out of the JWs, I knew nothing was really going on. It wasn't until 2017 I knew about the Australian Royal Commission. So I missed a whole lot. And one of the things that woke me up was the fact that they protected pedophiles. And I go, no, they don't. And that's where it all started for myself. When I did a little bit of research, I discovered, oh, crap, they do. Because I'd never, as an elder, ever handled any child abuse case. And in fact, the congregation I was in...
This is actually around the time when I had started to hear things about the Australian Royal Commission was around, probably around 2018 and 2019. And I really started to question things because I was still in JW at that time. But like watching this and hearing someone who is, actively investigating this and hear them say, they are actually protecting pedophiles, it is wild. I mean, I suspected that, but I never thought I would actually hear in a video someone saying it and be able to, see the proof that that they have. And that's something that Kim and Mikey research a lot, and they're in the States. This guy's from New Zealand, but Kim and Mikey are in the States, and they do a lot of research into court cases that are against Watchtower for CSA and domestic abuse, child abuse, and it's wonderful what they do.
And what really shocked me at the time, there was a pedophile in the congregation. And
really?
Yeah, and the trouble was, he liked boys. And I had allowed my son to go and stay with him. And I went, oh
no.
So he, I had to, because him and me are not talking, we were sort of talking, I had to ask him a question in a roundabout way, because, how do you bring it up? So anyway, I brought it up and he said, no, Dad, nobody's ever done anything to me, which was a relief, because that particular guy, I soon learnt, was part of a ring. There was an accountant, there was himself, there was another J-Dub, and there's one guy who lives not too far from where I am that was part of it. Anyway, that particular alleged pedophile, or person, or whatever you want to call him, is now dead. The victim, who was instrumental in getting a confession, we just about got that on the media, but for some reason it never happened. I still have the recordings of him confessing. I still have the written note that he wrote, and with those little things that happened with that particular person, he was able to start moving on, and he started to do things in his life. So that was right early on. And then I discovered it was in my own family. And I went,
oh no,
what? How did, and it just, I couldn't believe it. It was all true. And,
shocking.
And then I discovered it was carried on within that particular family member, which I don't really call him family. The only time I ever want to speak to him is when he's in the police station. That person lives in Australia, and unfortunately, the more and more I hear about it, and it's no laughing matter, he has done a number of unfortunate people who now have to cope with that for the rest of their lives. And all those things, I went, you've got to be kidding. And those was at the start. And that's when I started getting involved in a network, which has helped us to be able to get in and talk with the lawyers and other individuals where we could speak and educate some of New Zealand as to the J-Dubs mentality and attitudes. And now I know it's jumping around a little bit, but the Royal Commission has really pushed the fact that the Jehovah's Witnesses are not helpful. They have an attitude that stinks, and that the poor victims, well, they are totally against the Jehovah's Witnesses for them, according to the Royal Commission, holding up the release of the final report. So while it's bad news, the good news is mud does stick, and people are very well aware that the Jehovah's Witness leadership don't care. They care about their money and their name, and that's it. But yeah, back in 2017, 2018, I knew nothing about what I now know. I never thought that was possible. So anyway, so we had a little bit of chat early on. So with the, I can't remember who it was that rang me. I was on a job, and the lady would have had to have listened to me clean her leather lounge suite. And I got the lounge suite done, but it was like 45 minutes later than it should have been. But I'm never afraid to tell. We were always encouraged to tell the truth. So I'm telling the truth, and we educate where we can and whatever we can do to get in the media, which in recent times has been successful thanks to a number of reporters. Anusha Bradley's one of them. She's done a great job, and she continues to work at getting things in the media. So that's a brief summary. So,
well, it sounds like you guys have been working hard, and we appreciate everything you're doing, because I know New Zealand is just a small island compared to many other countries. But I think this is good because it shows that it's everywhere.
Sure is.
Them hiding the CSA and the horrific things they have been doing in hiding. And I was really happy when I heard New Zealand was going to be doing an investigation, and the commission. And I was very happy also to hear that Watchtower, that they were going to be investigating religious organization. And then, of course, we know Watchtower filed the suit that they didn't think they should be part of it, but surprise.
Surprise, yeah. So the J-Dubs, they had put the handbrakes on at every moment they can, like they do in every other court case. So back in when I was working with a guy called Phil Pennington, and the first time we had contact with the radio through Radio New Zealand was, and you may remember the announcement, where they were encouraged to destroy their personal notes and the other bits and pieces. So we got that into the media, and when I had a conversation with Phil, he goes, "So what have you been doing?" And at the time, once again, I was on a job. I couldn't think what had actually happened. And I rang him back and said, well, we did actually send this particular letter to the Royal Commission, letting them know that this was what Jehovah's Witnesses were encouraged to do, especially if they were elders, in documents. And so he goes, well, what did they say? I said, I don't know. I sent it to them. So he contacted, and that's when we started getting into the media, and it was 2019 that it happened. And it wasn't until the judicial review that I understood the J-Dubs were hoodwinking, if that's the right word, the Royal Commission. Right at the very start, Terence O'Brien said, you need to contact Christian Congregation Jehovah's Witnesses Australasia. And when I first read the document, I'm going, no child abuse? Because that's what he claimed. Well, that's what they claimed. And technically, they're right. They have no records of child abuse because they weren't in existence. And one thing I've learnt, ones like the lawyers don't understand the Jehovah's Witnesses or other high control groups that have to deal with this. They would hoodwink, they would hide, they would distract, they would divert, not to give a clear picture of what is actually happening.
Yeah.
And so right back then, we warned them. Well, it wasn't just myself and EXJWs. The network that we were part of and other EXJWs that were glad that they were going to be investigated wrote and said, this is what the JWs will do. They did not believe the JWs would be like what we know them to be. And so yeah, I call them the seven-headed snake, because every which way they go, they just are slippery as a snake and very deceptive. I know that might be picking on snakes, because snakes are quite nice, unless they bite you. But the Royal Commission, with their logic and their attitudes and things like that. So it just made me realise what I was a part of. And the publications that you can see behind me, we know what they are. I started to collect them because if the Royal Commission needed anything, I have physical printed copies that I can go and get a verified copy from the court and send it to them.
Yeah.
And obviously my collection got a little bit bigger than what I had originally planned. But yeah, it was helpful. We can get photos, we can get information, we can send it to them, along with all the other things that have been put out there with regards to procedures and letters and things like that. So yeah, it's been an interesting time. But in more recent times, when it did start in, say, 2022, so Watchtower was mucking around all that time. And there was very little happening because of COVID. We had lockdowns. They did do Zoom sorts of things, occasionally with private hearings. I know when I went in person. They actually came to my town and took my statement, and then they came back for another statement as from an elder's perspective. But it's interesting how the Commission has actually done the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Jehovah's Witnesses have not been investigated in a public hearing. They've never been. Well, they need to be. They have given, according to the latest Pānui, which is a newsletter, they have a case study. What's in that case study? We don't know. But Watchtower early on did get a draft copy of what they were going to talk about, the JWs. And while it came out on the 25th, Watchtower, and I don't know why they feel they are so special, even the victims don't get to see, regardless of whether it's a state or faith-based, the report. And yet Watchtower, in their wisdom, which is not that great, wanted to find out what was in the report. They wanted all the documents that went along with that report, and they were turned down. Because I noticed on one of your recent, one of the recent videos, you said free zip. Well, they lost the judicial review back last year. They lost the appeal, and then they've lost this case. Now, that's the application they filed on the, losing track of my days now, but the last one. And
I believe that they're having this meeting on Zoom, but that's something that, makes me, I guess, excited, is because they're beginning to lose. Watchtower is beginning to lose in their battles against the courts, because they've been caught so many times lying and it's like you're lying to protect pedophiles, basically. Why do you want them in your organization? It makes no sense whatsoever to be protecting these people, but that's what they seem to be hell-bent on doing, just because, I don't know, it makes their name look bad if they lose in court or something. And to me, it's just like you said, they're just going after protecting their names and protecting their money, which they seem to be losing a lot from losing court battles.
When I spoke with Simon, who's the lead lawyer, I asked him to clarify a couple of things for me, and he did. The JDubs at the same time is trying to get a copy of the final report, also filed a judicial review. And the lawyer goes, this is strange because there's no report out yet.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, oh, that's what they do.
Yeah. Now, question, is
Yep.
this final report going to be available to everybody? Like, is it going to be made public?
Yes, it is. It gets tabled in Parliament on the 24th of this month.
Okay.
Now, we may not get it straight away, but it will be available on the website. Well, a website. And we will be able to get hold of it. There is going to be 16 volumes, and the JDubs have a case study. So while they might be in parts of other volumes, they will have their standalone case study, which will have everything in there from what the Royal Commission has found.
Okay.
As to what
Good.
it is, we have to wait. Now,
Yeah,
there's very
we
little
just
we can
don't
actually do. Yeah, we just don't know. There's very little we can actually do because people don't really understand what's been happening with regards to our Royal Commission. I'm just trying to think of a polite way of putting it. There are things that, we'll use the word shortcomings. And some are small and some are major. And it's not just with regards to Jehovah's Witnesses, it's regards to all faith-based.
Yeah.
They included it under pressure. So they did it. What they should have done is done a standalone one for faith-based.
Yeah.
They didn't actually need to do an investigation to know how bad the problem was. They already knew how bad the problem was in abuse. So they have wasted many hundreds of millions of dollars to be able to do a investigation into faith-based state institutions. The final figure, it may be well above what Australia paid for their Royal Commission.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even as large as Australia was.
No. So
Wow.
the problem, there has been a number of problems, and the Commission has kept asking for money. They were turned down. It was then decided that the Commission would be put under statutory management.
I'm not sure of how these things go in court, but from what he just said, I wish that something like that would happen here in America, because this is not just in New Zealand. This is happening everywhere within Watchtowers, Jehovah's Witness organization. And like you said, it's happening in other organizations too. I can't comment on that because I don't look on those, but they just found 15 they caught 15 pedophiles in Pennsylvania. I wish that this would happen here in America, where they would be investigated for what they tried to hide and destroy.
And that the terms of reference would go back to the original 1950 to 1999. Now, every faith-based organisation that I know had many, many cases after the year 2000. As regards to Jehovah's Witnesses, people did come forward. They did write their submissions and their stories and their testimony. But taking it back, there was only one of all those documents handed to them from the JW size that was within scope. So
That's disappointing.
Well, it is disappointing, but there's a good side to it. Why are the Jehovah's Witnesses so scared if it's only one case?
Yeah, makes you wonder.
It does make you wonder. So there's an inkling as regards to what may be in the report. They know how the Jehovah's Witnesses act.
Yeah.
They know in the courtroom or in the lawyers, in their interactions with the commission, what the Jehovah's Witnesses are like.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait to see the final report. But if the Jehovah's Witnesses are so scared, because that appears to be the case, what is in there that they're so scared about? Even the judge in the review, was it the review? Yeah, I think it was the review. They said, what are you so scared about?
Yeah.
We should be able to ask questions and investigate. Wouldn't you want that to clear your name? Those are my words, but it was the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's, you sit there, you got to shake your head and wonder. Yeah, that's all I can say on that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. And, you know, when I was talking about the appeal that they had just lost and wanting an advance copy to, you know, read before it's made public, I even mentioned that, you know, they obviously are scared of something and want to go into damage control before it's even available for the public. And I think that's what that whole court case was about, them trying to get the report before everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, they won't get it. Nobody's going to get it until it's been tabled, apart from those ones who need it, on the 24th of this month. Once it's been tabled in Parliament, we will be able to get it. We'll be able to find out what is in that report.
Yeah, it would be nice for them to release that early, like they have other things.
I wouldn't hold my breath, to be honest. Just with different things we've seen happening with the commission. While they've done some good work, there's a lot of questions. There's been a lot of promises given and told that we would be able to, you know, as a network, not just the JWs, because I fast learned that while the JWs are bad, there's so many other religions out there, faith-based organizations that just are as bad as the JWs, if not worse.
Yeah.
You know, like the Exclusive Brethren. I know they've changed the name slightly. They're worse than the Jehovah's Witnesses in a lot of ways. Jehovah's Witnesses are worse in other ways, but they're just as bad. And it wasn't until I realized, working with the network and some of the survivors, they're all the same. And it just, you know, give you an example. I've been speaking with an ex-Scientologist. We know what Scientology is like.
Yeah.
And when that latest report came out from Anusha Bradley, she goes, "Are the J-dubs in bed with Scientology?" I said, "Well, they could be. There is an individual that works for both of them." And she goes, "They are becoming like Scientology in the way they handle legal matters." And she could
Yeah.
not believe that that was what the J-dubs were turning into.
Yeah, we've been in contact with several ex-Mormons and current Mormons, and the LDS Church has the same problem, and they do the same thing. They have been hiding it for decades,
Yep.
and it's all getting exposed. I just got a notice this morning that the Gateway Church, which is one of those new mega churches here in the United States, I think they're based in Texas. Same thing. They just got exposed. The guy that started that mega church has all these accusations of abuse against him with the CSA. And the Seventh day Adventists, the Baptists, the Southern Baptists, it's all of them.
Yeah.
It's all of them. They're all being exposed. So, and of course, we all know the Catholic Church.
Yep. The one thing I noticed with regards to ones from different religions, what you've just said is correct. They all got the same problem. But
Yeah.
like EXJWs, we think J-dubs are worse. The Catholic Church, the members who here in New Zealand that I've spoken to, they think their organisation's worse. It doesn't matter. They all do it. They are all just as bad as each other, and they need to be held accountable.
Exactly. Exactly. And they all need to be investigated. And those that hide it, and my personal opinion is there should be no clergy pendant privilege, that it remains confidential and secret. I think all of the clergy should be required everywhere, worldwide, to mandatory report cases, allegations of CSA.
Totally agree. What gives them the right to give a young person a prison sentence for the rest of their life?
Exactly. Exactly. And it ruins people's lives.
Yeah, it does. You know, like we talked about before with regards to the J-dubs, and this is how a lot of religious people are viewing it now. The J-dubs held up the final report so many different times. A large number of them, they feel that the report was never going to come out before they died. It should have been out. The report should have been out a year ago, but it kept getting extended and then extended and then extended. Like with regards to the Jehovah's Witnesses and their appeals and the judicial reviews, the commission was trying to cope with all this going on, and the government allowed the extensions because of some of the goings on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it was almost like the Jehovah's Witnesses were filing all of these court cases and lawsuits and stuff just to delay all of this.
Yeah, it's like their tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
The J-dubs, I think they must be special or something, but it's not just about the J-dubs, even though they are bad in some of the things that they do. Well, a lot of the things they do.
Well, as an elder, you know that they feel that the world is Satan's organization and they don't have to answer to Satan's organization.
And I remember just being in meetings and listening to the I guess it was like Watchtower studies or something, and someone going under persecution, and they're having court cases will be appealed because this is Satan trying to bring reproach upon Jehovah's name and upon Jehovah's organization, and this is the damage that they end up doing to victims of abuse, victims of CSA. Is those victims, they're completely shut out, because as soon as you go and you say something, you're liable for bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name, and they want you out of the congregation because it makes them look bad. So they don't care about their members. They care about their name and they care about their money, and that's it. It's gross.
That's right.
So basically above the law.
Yeah. And every other religion's doing the same thing. So as to what's going to happen from now on, a lot of things that have happened over the last few years is being held up by certain individuals' own viewpoints on faith-based. Ones who are in charge don't really want to do it. They did things to hold things up. That's the reports I've been getting.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, why couldn't you have done a proper job? Well, for a start, it was too wide. Our Royal Commission not only was focusing on child abuse, but it was focusing on any sort of abuse, whether it was an emotional, whether it was physical, mental, sexual. And Jehovah's Witnesses, along with many other high control groups and not so high control groups, fall in that category. So the scope was so wide that they honestly could not cover it in such a short space of time. And for a population of 5 million here in New Zealand, or whatever the figure is at the moment, just too wide, too much information.
They probably weren't expecting all of this and were a bit overwhelmed.
Yep, definitely. Because I know when I sat down to talk to one of the investigators, he was surprised at how much JW stuff was coming forward. They never expected.
Interesting.
I couldn't get figures from them. I said, I don't need to know how many, the names or anything, but it would be nice to know how many JWs were coming forward. We still don't know the actual figure, but even as of that article that came out on Radio New Zealand, I had a woman reach out to me. She tracked me down, and she was abused. And she wants to do a few things. It was nice to meet her, but she has a real disliking for JW elders because of what she went through. It's just so sad that these organizations feel they're above the law, like you said.
Yeah.
It just, you don't know what to think about it, considering you were always taught, as you grew up as a JW, there's not a problem with child abuse, not a problem with any other abuse, whether it's a human right one or a normal one. And then to find out that's what happens. And of course, we're lying because we don't know. We're apostates. And they don't like that sort of information coming out.
Well, that's why Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses have to demonize all of us as liars and all of this, because Watchtower does not want the JW members to find out that, hey, there is a serious systemic problem and we are telling the truth. And, I wanted to mention, you mentioned, how most don't know the problem in their congregations. And I knew as a child that there were several problems in our congregation because I am an abuse survivor of physical abuse. My dad would beat me. And so, us kids would talk in the meetings, and several of my friends and stuff were being abused. Like you mentioned, if it wasn't sexually, it was physically and, psychologically.
Yeah.
And it's just horrific when you start thinking about how prolific this problem is. And we only know Jehovah's Witnesses, but imagine all these other organizations. What a horrible problem it must be.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't until I woke up that I realized, like yourself, I had the physical. We've all had the emotional and the manipulation. It's all abusive behavior. But sometimes our parents didn't know what we know now. It's a total different environment that we all live in. So, I couldn't believe what I found out about my own father. I know what people thought of him, and I know what I saw in the house, but I thought it was normal.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, it's just, and you go, oh, it's not normal. Well, that's not good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly been an eye-opener when it comes to working like last year as a network of survivors. So it's not just the JDubs. It's all faith-based. We went to the UN by Zoom. We didn't go to Geneva or anything, but we went to a meeting. And I'm sitting there going, you guys don't get it.
No.
They don't get the abuse. And we're talking about every faith base that is part of the network. They just don't get it, how abusive these religious organizations are to the individuals.
And I don't know about other countries, but here in the United States, the First Amendment of the Constitution gives everyone the freedom to religion. Well, Watchtower uses that over and over. I've read so many court documents where they throw that in. Basically, we can do what we want under the name of religion.
Yep.
And our doctrines we can change whenever we want. And like there again, they think they're above the law. But see, we have talked to a lot of government officials, and they, for the most part, don't want to even get involved with investigating religions because they don't want to step on their toes and violate the freedom of religion, because Watchtower will run to the United Nations crying foul.
They will. Yeah, it just makes you wonder. But I think people as a whole, like I know here in New Zealand, one of the best things that have come out by the JDubs doing what they've done, it's made people aware of what the JDubs are like.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
and that's one good thing all of this has done is when we get these final reports, when we get these court documents, and we can actually see in writing and in the hearings, the videos of the hearings like the ARC, we can see they say things, they admit they destroy evidence, and everybody can see how horrible they are.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know for a fact that those Australian Royal Commission hearings, they're still doing their job. I was just contacted the other day by a Jehovah's Witness couple that just woke up, and they came across the Australian Royal Commission hearings on YouTube, and they watched Jeffrey Jackson lie through his teeth, and that helped wake them up. So it's still doing its job.
Yep, it's good. And hopefully, like here in New Zealand, the Royal Commission as a rule, is not really known nationally. There were so many people that did not know we had a Royal Commission going on. They never really advertised the fact that it was. And so the actual figures could be way, way, way higher than what has come forward.
Yeah.
We will never know because it just never happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know a lot of the survivors don't want to file with the authorities, or the statute of limitations has run out, or they see what happens to victims on social media. They're attacked and everything else. So they say, no, I just want to move on with my life and I don't want to, talk about this.
Absolutely.
So you're right.
I don't go bother looking at the things that we've done.
And now they have a thing where they have changed the disfellowshipping policy to where they can talk. Sometimes JWs can talk to disfellowship ones or something like that. But in the past, if you ran to authorities, you would be looked at as bringing reproach upon Jehovah's name, and they would not want you in there. They would kick you out. And if you got kicked out, you lost all access to your family that may have been in there. And it's traumatizing to have that happen, on top of also having, those things that the victims had, the abuse that the victims had on them. So that's why she's saying that people would not want to go to the authorities, because they would be completely shunned and pushed out their community. They would lose access to their families, and it's life-altering, being kicked out of a community and losing access to your family, on top of already being a victim of abuse.
In the media, I know what I've said is true. If people are going to take offence, let them take offence. They're going to pick on me, let them pick on me. I'm not going to read it.
Yeah.
Because it's important that we educate New Zealand. While it is activism, I don't really view it as activism. I view it as an education as to...
And the ones that I'm talking about with that is Jehovah's Witness organization, Watchtower and Bible Tract Society.
What the J-dubs and other faith-based are like. If people want to be involved with religion and they know all the ins and outs of it, then great. But you think about the baptism questions. When were you told in the baptism questions that if you make a mistake, you're going to get kicked out? Well, I changed that slightly now with their new things earlier this year with regards to young people being disfellowshipped. But you're never told.
Yeah.
It's not transparent.
No. And I think that's why they have a lot of problems. And we have heard that there are more changes coming. So we're going to see what new changes and thoughts and new light we're going to be hearing and seeing the rest of the year. So
time will tell.
Yeah, it will. It will. Now, I wanted to ask you, your Facebook page, is it open to the public?
Yep. Yeah, it's just J-dubs for justice. I'll send you the link.
Okay, and I'll put the link down below.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention, I want to thank you and all of the others who are working in your network, who try so hard to help the abuse survivors. And I know we don't always say it, but we appreciate all the hard work all of you have done.
Yeah, when I first started doing it, my view on it was, I'm no longer a J-dub. They've got no control over me. I'm not going to sit on my hands anymore. I've got to start speaking out. I've got to educate where we can, because it's extremely hard. Like here in New Zealand, our media landscape, like Australia's just finding with those sacking reporters, it's going to be hard to get stuff out there in the media. Radio New Zealand is the one that has been very, very, very helpful. Like I said, Anusha Bradley has done more to investigate the JDubs than the Commission. She's found out more of their policies than a lot of what has happened. Now, I'm not saying the lawyers in the Commission for the Royal Commission don't have a grasp on the JDubs, because they have a grasp. You know, like one of the, I'll just get the picture. That picture there.
Oh,
it's a court scene.
Uh-huh.
And it says basically that any unfavourable decision they will appeal. Well, we sent that. That was in this publication here.
Oh, okay.
On page 18. My eyes aren't very good. Anyway, in paragraph chapter 25, I appeal to Caesar. And we sent that to the lawyers. That was one of the things that we sent to them. And they had that picture in there, and they were expecting the appeals to happen. But that's from their own publication. And they were surprised that that sort of thing was in their publication, and that the JDubs would actually put it out there that that's what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So,
it's amazing what is right in front of all of us our entire lives in the publications. And that's why we have all of these, you know, just like your library, so that we have the hard copies, so that when Jehovah's Witnesses tell us we're lying, we can show them right from the hard copy.
Yeah, well, I've been asked to do a couple of videos there's been a number of times people wanted me to prove to their witness family that JDubs never said that. So we showed them all the publications, put them on the table, did the video, showed them who printed it, did it, and they go, oh, it's all apostate. They just don't believe their own publications.
No, they don't. They don't. You can get a screenshot right from jw.org and they still will not believe it. I mean, it's just amazing, you know, how hoodwinked, and their heads are buried in the sand. They do not want to see anything except the governing body. That's it.
Yep. You can't pick on them. You'll be in trouble.
That's where the brainwashing and manipulation that I've talked about in the past is you are taught when you're in there that anything that you see that counters what the governing body says or what comes out in Watchtowers or in literature, you are taught to look away from it, never look at it, never research it, never question what they say, and it's so toxic. It is so toxic, and it leads to people being abused and being victims of abuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if anything, I would only say that those ones who are out there doing the activism or education, a common goal needs to happen. I know we all have our own personalities. Like here in New Zealand, we've not had the problem of people coming forward and trying to fight against the common cause. We want to educate the Commission, and whoever came on board had that same thinking. We were determined to put it out there, and while I did a lot of the speaking, just as a spokesman, there was people behind the scenes working hard at doing things.
Yeah. Teamwork.
So,
That's what we
it's
all
what
need
it
is
is.
teamwork.
Yep, that's what it is.
And I like the word advocate. You know, that's more like what I call myself, an advocate, because I'm sticking up for the abuse survivors and protecting kids. So, you know, I like that word, and whatever, you know, I don't like labels, but whatever labels someone wants to call themselves. But yeah, it would be great if everybody could work together, and instead of, you know, getting the ego in the way, or, you know, fighting, or trying to destroy someone because you don't like them. I mean, it would be so nice to get rid of all of that crap and just try to work together for a common theme. But unfortunately, you know, we know Watchtower's got some agents in the community, and they're going to be fighting against everybody who's actually trying to get something done. We've seen it happen over and over again, and it's just a shame. It's just a shame.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is a shame. I know we all have our own strengths and the things we like to do, but put them to good use. Become part of something that we can all work in and on to be able to reach the common goal, and that is educate about Watchtower. And
exactly.
all other faith-based are the same. So even if you carry on working not in the EXJW community, you can do good by helping other communities out because you have similar things that have happened to you in your life.
Exactly. Years ago, we were contacted by a Mormon guy, and he thanked us for our videos. And he said, because of your videos, you're showing us Mormons and ex-Mormons of the LDS Church how to become activists and speak out about what is happening in our church.
Yeah.
So that's one good thing that the XJW community has done, is it has shown all these other faith-based organizations, those apostates, of what needs to be done and how to expose what's going on in their religion.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Shane, I am sorry, but I have a major thunderstorm coming in.
That's
But
all
I
right.
want to thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me here, and, you know, letting all of us know what's going on in New Zealand. And hopefully that final report will be out on time, and it will be something that we can all use to expose what's going on within Watchtower, this CSA problem.
And then we'll see whether the JWs will continue with their review on the report.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, they're not going to put any of this on jw.org.
That would be good, but you're right, they won't.
Never do.
I think their page would be full of all court cases.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, can you hear me?
Yep, can still hear you.
Okay, that's basically the end of the video. I just wanted to share this. I'm gonna put a link in the description for Kim and Mikey's channel.